What's going on, guys? Justin with 1791. Thanks for watching. Today we're going to be talking about how to stay sharp in the winter when it's cold out. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so this video is really more for folks that live in more northern climates. I suppose that this may have some applicability to folks that maybe are in a really hot environment, like for instance like Arizona, where some days maybe it's just too stinking hot to go outside and train, or maybe you're in a climate like the Pacific Northwest where it just rains a lot, and maybe you want to have a way to be able to train and not necessarily have to go outside in the elements. It's not necessarily that we're trying to dodge the elements. There's a lot of value in training in bad elements. For instance, the old adage of if it ain't raining, it ain't training. But guys, for me, when it's like -10, -15 degrees outside in the winter where I live, at that point, it's not about how tough you are and how much hair you have on your chest. It's a matter of like frostbite or no frostbite. So I really wanted a way a few years back to be able to train through the year, through the seasons, and not necessarily have to go to an indoor range. Indoor ranges are great. For me personally, I really kind of look at indoor ranges as like just a fun thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. There's really, for me, there's no seriousness whatsoever with indoor ranges because of one major critical detail. Who can tell me what that detail is? Go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'll wait a minute for you guys to think about it. So if you guys guessed you can't draw from a holster at most commercial indoor ranges, you would be correct. And if you are training for the deadly force application of these self-defense tools, drawing your pistol from the holster, doing that correctly, being able to do it in many different circumstances and being able to do it quickly and repeatedly, that's kind of a big deal, right? And if you can't do that most important thing, other than actually having good marksmanship and hitting your mark, getting your pistol out of the holster quickly, safely, and efficiently, if you can't do that in an indoor range, that's not a training environment in my opinion. That's just a place to go like have fun with the boys, you know what I mean? So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about a tool that I use to make sure that I can train in adverse conditions. So this is my Umarex Glock 17 replica trainer pistol. It looks like a Glock 17, it smells like a Glock 17. Well, maybe it's missing that gunpowder smell. It cycles like a Glock 17, has manual of arms like a Glock 17, magazine release is where it's supposed to be. And most importantly, it fits in Glock 17 style holsters. Like this BH style holster I have here, this belt holster fits the Glock 17 perfectly, and it fits my duplicate pistol. Now the reason why they can get away with that is Umarex, the company that makes this pistol, actually took out a license from Glock to be able to replicate the Glock 17 in this trainer pistol. Now the way this works, has a removable magazine, much like a standard Glock magazine, and it has this follower here, and you can load this thing with 8 of these rubber training balls. It is a 43 caliber projectile. Now, some of you guys might be thinking right off the gate, airsoft, right? This is kind of like airsoft. The big difference for me is that when I shoot this thing, I really know that I shot something. You know what I mean? Because it has this 43 caliber rubber projectile going down range, when I shoot this thing, it actually cycles and it has a little bit of recoil. Not a ton. It's not like you're shooting a 44 Magnum or anything. Arguably, it is less recoil than a standard 9mm, but it does have some recoil. Let's go ahead and put some rubber balls in this thing. That'll be fun. Alright, so you have this little orange follower, you pull that down. It's kind of like your old, you know, Ruger Mark 1, Mark 2 pistols, or any semi-automatic 22 pistol has this little spring-loaded follower that you can pull down, and you can just load that baby up. There, so I've got 8 of those rubber balls in there. Now, to me, the one downside to this thing is you can get spare magazines for these things, but they're pretty expensive because most of the technology is actually in the magazine. And it's not like super duper tough. I don't believe the manufacturer recommends or will even warranty it if you hit that magazine release and like let that magazine hit the ground. So I only have the one magazine for this thing, and what I'll do is I'll just, you know, train through a couple of drills and then I'll reload my magazine and reset. I won't really do a ton of reload training with this thing, just because if I were to do that reload training with this thing and I let that magazine hit the deck, it's probably going to break. And if I try and do reload training and not let the magazine hit the deck, then I'm kind of cheating and building training scars. So yeah, the CO2 fits in the back. The base plate just kind of twists out of the way. And then there's a little follower down here where you can fine tune the adjustment. Essentially, you want to put the cartridge in there, and then you'll fine tune that adjustment to where the cartridge, the CO2 cartridge, is just hitting that that top nipple up there. And then you're going to twist that base plate all the way around and it locks into place, and that will then prime the CO2 cartridge. I don't remember exactly how many rounds I can get out of one CO2 cartridge, but it's a lot. All right, I will probably reload this magazine of 8 rounds. I'll probably reload the balls in there probably, you know, 8 to 10 times before I really start to notice that the CO2 is really kind of suffering and it needs to be replaced. One kind of fun thing is all summer long I will find these little 43 caliber rubber balls from like a winter of training. I'll just find them all throughout the garage all summer. It's just kind of fun, reminding me of like, oh yeah, I did that this winter. I stayed sharp, right? And CO2s are pretty cheap. I think I bought this pack last year. It was $7.49 for a pack of 12 CO2 cartridges. And then these rubber balls, how much do these cost? I don't remember. It was a while back. They're not that bad. Anyways, there's 430 rubber balls in here, and I reuse these. The way I reuse them is I'll have a IPSC style target that I have on a target stand, and I put it in my garage, and then I take a FedEx box and I tape that to the chest cavity of that target. That gives me a couple of things. Number one, it gives that target more dimension. Instead of just shooting at a two-dimensional piece of paper, it has a little bit more dimension. And then I'll put a t-shirt over it, because that also adds a little bit of realism to what I'm doing. And then I'll go through a few different draw and engage drills. I'll incorporate some movement here and there. And when I'm getting those good center mass hits, those balls, those rubber balls, they hit the t-shirt and they get embedded in the that FedEx box. And then after, you know, a couple of drills, I'll just walk out of there, and most of the time I'll be able to just pluck those rubber balls out of the t-shirt, because they embed themselves in that cardboard box, and the t-shirt slows it down just enough. And then I'm also shooting at a target that's wearing clothing. That also adds a little bit of realism when it comes to working through that stress inoculation. If you're a fan of Dave Grossman, if you've ever heard of Dave Grossman, I highly recommend. If you haven't heard of Dave Grossman, I highly recommend you read the book On Combat. There's a lot of value in injecting as much realism into your training as possible to help work through the process of stress inoculation. All right. So I'll go through a few different drills, and like, let's say like there's snow on the ground outside, it's like -5 degrees, -10 degrees. For me, I'm able to just head out into the garage on a cold day, throw on the garage heater, get it kind of warm in there. Maybe it's not like 65 degrees in there, but you know, 40 degrees is a heck of a lot better than -10 degrees. So I'm pretty happy about being able to just train in my garage. One of the other things that I like about the good old Umarex Glock 17 trainer, notice I got the blue tape on there to signify to me that this is my training pistol, not a live pistol. A little bit of added safety measure for when I'm discharging a firearm in my garage, since it's not actually a firearm. Anyways, one of the things I really like about this that I didn't mention in the studio film was that as opposed to other controlled environment training simulators, like those laser drop-in things that you can drop into the breech of your gun, you don't really get the same feedback out of that. Basically, you just pull the trigger, and the only thing that you feel is the dropping of the striker, and like it just projects a little laser at like a pre-prescribed target that doesn't really look like a human, anything like that. Doesn't really have any realism. This, you get some serious feedback that you're discharging a firearm, and it just kind of adds to the realism. So behold, you got the pow, you got the bang, you got a projectile coming out. These little 43 caliber rubber balls kind of hit with a purpose. You feel like you're actually shooting something, you know what I mean? Now, earlier we talked about airsoft. You can usually accomplish something like this with the use of airsoft. I don't really love airsoft guns for training, simply because the projectile is so small. The manual of arms isn't as realistic. This Umarex Glock pistol actually has some heft to it, which that kind of makes it kind of feel good in the hand. It feels a little bit more realistic. And something that I've done with this is I've just taken some blue tape and I've wrapped it around the handle, which identifies this as my training pistol, just to make sure that I'll do a double check, make sure I've got the handle with blue tape, just to make sure that I don't discharge a live firearm in my garage and create all of the issues that would come with that. And then I can just pick up these little rubber balls, or I can pluck them out of the target. Just like that. And then I just put them in this little jar over here. The magazine, I just have a little canister of rubber balls over here, and I just reload that magazine, get gas back up. This has advantages not just in cold weather training, but also in times back a few weeks ago, we did a video about the importance of having training guns. I was in that video. It's primarily talking about my Smith & Wesson M&P 1522, and I did give a honorable mention to this guy in that video, but in that video I promised I would do a video specific to this. One of the other advantages to having something like this is in times of ammunition scarcity, or when price gouging is going on with ammunition because of like whatever political talking point at the time has driven the gun industry into a tailspin, I can always shoot with this. I can always use this. This doesn't like, this isn't connected to the volatility of the ammunition market, because CO2 cartridges, like, this is the last thing people are thinking about in a gun run. And these rubber balls, like I said, I typically reuse those. I only have the one container of 430, and I've just been continually reusing that for about 2 years now. So that's a huge advantage there, just being able to reuse that, and all I need is a few CO2 cartridges. Bob's your uncle. Now, something else that this is really beneficial for is training others as well. I can have my wife come out in the garage with me for like 5 minutes and do some drills. And we're not beholden to, like, you know, driving 10 to 15 minutes, half an hour to the range and like bringing all this gear, unpacking everything, and then going through a few drills. And then she's like tired and annoyed and ready to go home. And then it's like 15, 20 minutes, half hour back to the house. And then I have to unpack all my crap, whatever. I can just walk out in the garage with a pocket full of CO2 cartridges and this guy and my eye protection. And like, I can train for 20, 30 minutes, an hour, however I want, or however long I want. And I can be like, hey babe, come out here. And then, like, you know, have her train for 5 minutes. And then she becomes a more effective force multiplier as well, with like really no adverse input into it. Something else I do with this as far as training other people, I am in charge of a church security team in my hometown, and I'll actually use this once a year, this trainer pistol, to conduct active shooter drills. It's sad to say that even in houses of worship these days, like, you need to actually think about stuff like that, but it's an undeniable reality. There was just a church shooting this year in 2025 at the there was a Mormon church, I believe in Michigan, that had some dude come in and shoot up the place. So it's a consideration. So once a year we'll do an active shooter drill, and I'll give each of my teammates an opportunity to run through some scenarios in a safe environment, setting up different drills to run through to make sure that, number one, they're getting those good repetitions of drawing a pistol from the holster, and then engaging a shoot or no shoot environment. Sometimes I'll set the target up and I won't put a gun on it, and then the student will have to work through that situation and identify whether or not the bad guy has a gun and whether or not they should engage. So they'll have to think through it. And there's also the stress inoculation factor of discharging a gun inside of the church. That is definitely something that a lot of people struggle with or will have to work through. So doing that in a training environment with a training pistol, just to kind of like start that mental journey, that's a huge thing. It's bigger than you might realize. Being able to kind of check the box, kind of crawl, walk, run your way to being able to be capable in that environment. One of the other things that I really like about this thing is I can use paint pellets, and I can run through force-on-force scenarios with friends. In an environment like that, where you're actually shooting projectiles back and forth at each other, safety is paramount, and the training gets so much better with three things going on. You've got to have one of these, and it gets better if you have another one. So you have a training pistol and your opponent has a training pistol, and then you have another third person that is managing the scenarios. Otherwise, doing force-on-force training will inevitably devolve into a grown man's paintball match. Dudes having fun, screwing around, and the training value kind of disintegrates if it's not being managed, all right? Safety's paramount there. Make sure everyone's wearing a paintball mask and a nut cup. I know it sounds weird to think about, but you should really be wearing a nut cup when you're shooting at each other with this thing. Something else that you must do when you're doing force-on-force training one against another is you need to do safety pat-downs and make sure that no one has an actual live gun on them. What I've typically done in my garage when I have some of my buddies come over, and we'll use this trainer pistol. Even if we're just shooting a target, we'll do safety pat-downs on one another. We'll put our live concealed carry guns in a drawer in my shop. and then we'll just take turns using this thing on the target doing different drills. We could do force on force training if everyone has paintball masks. My group of guys, we need to get one more of these so that we can do live force on each other with the paint marking rounds. I'm just saying that that is definitely something that you can do with this tool because it is so versatile. Getting creative, working cover and concealment with my kid's sled over here. Slide even locks back. And that will really help you guys make sure that you can stay sharp in the winter. Come springtime, you don't need to like go and knock off the rust. You're just you're staying dangerous year round. So if you guys found some benefit in watching this, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, train hard and carry your gun.